huge shout of "God save the King." And so King Charles straight to the public to greet the people who have been waiting for so long, to exchange a few words with them as he arrives here at Buckingham Palace. King Charles III.
Interesting people of all ages, aren't they? Just looking at the faces and trying to just identify. There are a lot of British voices there, aren't there? I mean, normally at this time of the year, perhaps most of the people outside Buckingham Palace would still be tourists, but some flowers, yes.
So many people there gathered, wanting to just shake his hand. You can see the real sympathy with him as they stand there, the appreciation too, that he's come out here to greet people who have been waiting for so long.
Yes. And I'm sure he will be touched and encouraged by the reception that he's receiving. All right, these are people who are perhaps committed and very much supportive of the monarchy. But you can see some faces which are clearly emotional. And as I was saying, there are people of every age and from all parts of society, and very supportive.
And all these shouts of "God save the King," something anyone under the age of 70 or in their 70s will not have heard before.
About my age, yes.
But it is the real moment, isn't it? It's the moment of change. Hearing that.
Yes, it is. And this is what we must now adjust to. This is now the reality of our United Kingdom, which now has as its head of state a king. We haven't known that, as you say, for more than 70 years. And it does take a little bit of getting used to, doesn't it? To have to say the king, God save the king, yes, those shouts that we can hear.
So many hands outstretched, so many people wanting to greet King Charles. He hasn't even stepped into Buckingham Palace.
No, and it's quite a long line. Again, I'm just looking at the aerial, and so I suspect, well, we'll just have to wait and see. He may just go in, walk in there through the
aerial views. Look at the crowds that have gathered. Everyone with their arms aloft. Everyone trying to capture that image on their phones. And the flowers there, you could see lined up by the railings.
And that, I suspect, is just a fraction of the number that we will see there by the time the state funeral does take place. I don't know for how long the palace authorities will leave flowers there, but I suspect they may feel that they do need to leave them in place.
It does give you an idea of the crowds, the size of the crowds who will no doubt turn out across London in 10 or so days' time.
Yep, yeah, I think it will.
Funeral.
I think it will surpass. Well, who's to say that it will surpass the crowds that we saw for Diana's funeral or the Queen Mother's funeral, but it will be on a very, very big scale, a very large scale. I think we can say that without any doubt.
And the king has a busy few hours, let alone days ahead of him. He will meet the Prime Minister this afternoon as king. He will make this address to the nation at about 6 o'clock. There's a service at St. Paul's. And then tomorrow the Accession Council, which is the moment when he is proclaimed king. It's not by law, but it is a tradition, a centuries-old tradition that goes back very many centuries, the moment that the nation is told.
Yes,
there has been a passing.
All these traditional historical components coming together. As you say, the Accession Council, when normally the entire Privy Council comes together, but the Privy Council is now so large that I think there isn't room for them. So I think they've had to, if not ballot for it, they've restricted it to, is it 500 or 200?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some Privy Councillors who aren't best pleased at the thought that they won't be there for the Accession Council, which will be a really historic moment, the Accession Council for a new monarch, where there will be an oath will be sworn, and generally the new monarch will say something. And as you say, that will all be televised live.
And that will take place not at Buckingham Palace. Oh, a kiss for the new king. That all takes place not at Buckingham Palace, but at St. James's Palace next door. The traditional seat, really, wasn't it? The home of the monarchy.
Absolutely, yep. A much older building than Buckingham Palace, St. James's Palace, which of course used to be where Charles was based until the Queen Mother's death, when he then moved across to Clarence House. But yes, and I think he will be. He really is going right down the line, isn't he?
Absolutely.
He doesn't want to disappoint anybody. And so many faces just sort of creased rather with sadness. A lot of tears will have been shed over the past 24 hours, won't they, in many households at the news, but this is the transition that we are witnessing, the different parts of it taking place. The King returning to Buckingham Palace, shaking hands with those people who have gathered there, people who are wishing God save the King and singing God save the King. Somebody from the media.
Trying to do an interview. I'm not
Yes.
sure that will be taking place right now.
Well, the large protection officer wasn't going to have any of that.
Lots of smiles, lots of sympathy, and people just wanting to shake his hand, really.
Yes, and the sun is shining for him after the storms of yesterday. The weather has cleared over London. It's not a great day, but at least it's a dry day. So I suspect we're very nearly at the end of the line, and he will then be going into Buckingham Palace. No sign of Camilla. I don't know, we haven't seen whether she's following along a few paces behind him. I suspect possibly, well, we don't know.
I think this is
So-
no, I get the impression that this is a very much a solo.
Yeah, it's his
walkabout.
moment, isn't it? It's his moment. The King. There we are.
He is.
He's
Up at the gates.
heading
He
in. Yes.
has greeted an awful lot of people there, and now he can
Wondering
take
where to
in the
go.
flowers. Look at all those flowers. And there is
Yeah.
Queen Camilla. It must be very overwhelming for him, even though he knew that this was coming. He has been expecting it for very many years, but
Yes, and pretty overwhelming for her as well. This is a role which she had perhaps never fully imagined. She knew what she was getting into, obviously, when she married the Prince of Wales back in, 2005. But she hasn't spent her entire life in royal service. She's adjusted to it over the past 15 or so years, and she has now a number of issues and campaigns which she has made her own, violence against women and reading and all that sort of thing. But it will be a considerable increase in her profile and in what is expected of her as Queen Consort. She will be crowned alongside him when the coronation does eventually take place. She has no constitutional role, but there, Camilla with Charles the King, about to enter Buckingham Palace.
I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow. Throughout her life, Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family. And we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother, for her love, affection, guidance, understanding, and example. Queen Elizabeth was a life well lived, a promise with destiny kept, and she is mourned most deeply in her passing. That promise of lifelong service I renew to you all today. Alongside the personal grief that all my family are feeling, we also share with so many of you in the United Kingdom, in all the countries where the Queen was head of state, in the Commonwealth and across the world, a deep sense of gratitude for the more than 70 years in which my mother, as Queen, served the people of so many nations. In 1947, on her 21st birthday, she pledged in a broadcast from Cape Town to the Commonwealth to devote her life, whether it be short or long, to the service of her peoples. That was more than a promise. It was a profound personal commitment which defined her whole life. She made sacrifices for duty. Her dedication and devotion as sovereign never wavered through times of change and progress, through times of joy and celebration, and through times of sadness and loss. In her life of service, we saw that abiding love of tradition, together with that fearless embrace of progress, which makes us great as nations. The affection, admiration, and respect she inspired became the hallmark of her reign. And as every member of my family can testify, she combined these qualities with warmth, humor, and an unerring ability always to see the best in people. I pay tribute to my mother's memory, and I honor her life of service. I know that her death brings great sadness to so many of you, and I share that sense of loss beyond measure with you all. When the Queen came to the throne, Britain and the world were still coping with the privations and aftermath of the Second World War, and still living by the conventions of earlier times. In the course of the last 70 years, we have seen our society become one of many cultures and many faiths. The institutions of the state have changed in turn. But through all changes and challenges, our nation and the wider family of realms, of whose talents, traditions, and achievements I am so inexpressibly proud, have prospered and flourished. Our values have remained and must remain constant. The role and the duties of monarchy also remain, as does the sovereign's particular relationship and responsibility towards the Church of England, the church in which my own faith is so deeply rooted. In that faith and the values it inspires, I have been brought up to cherish a sense of duty to others and to hold in the greatest respect the precious traditions, freedoms, and responsibilities of our unique history and our system of parliamentary government. As the Queen herself did with such unswerving devotion, I too now solemnly pledge myself throughout the remaining time God grants me, to uphold the constitutional principles at the heart of our nation. And wherever you may live in the United Kingdom, or in the realms and territories across the world, and whatever may be your background or beliefs, I shall endeavor to serve you with loyalty, respect, and love, as I have throughout my life. My life will, of course, change as I take up my new responsibilities. It will no longer be possible for me to give so much of my time and energies to the charities and issues for which I care so deeply. But I know this important work will go on in the trusted hands of others. This is also a time of change for my family. I count on the loving help of my darling wife, Camilla. In recognition of her own loyal public service since our marriage 17 years ago, she becomes my Queen Consort. I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely so much. As my heir, William now assumes the Scottish titles which have meant so much to me. He succeeds me as Duke of Cornwall and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall, which I have undertaken for more than 5 decades. Today, I am proud to create him Prince of Wales, Tywysog Cymru, the country whose title I have been so greatly privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty. With Catherine beside him, our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations, helping to bring the marginal to the centre ground, where vital help can be given. I want also to express my love for Harry and Meghan as they continue to build their lives overseas. In a little over a week's time, we will come together as a nation, as a Commonwealth, and indeed a global community, to lay my beloved mother to rest. In our sorrow, let us remember and draw strength from the light of her example. On behalf of all my family, I can only offer the most sincere and heartfelt thanks for your condolences and support. They mean more to me than I can ever possibly express. And to my darling Mama, as you begin your last great journey to join my dear late Papa, I want simply to say this: thank you. Thank you for your love and devotion to our family and to the family of nations you have served so diligently all these years. May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.